Hello and welcome to Eavesdropping at the Movies. I'm Mike.
And I'm Jose.
And we've just been to see Superman.
Yes.
Not the 1978 Superman.
Though I saw that the very first day it came out.
But the news...
With my brother.
How was it?
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was such a thrilling experience. Though I did make the mistake of taking... Well, he wasn't a problem. But I also took my younger cousin, right? And she had to go to the bathroom like every 5 minutes. You know, they were 5 years old or something. They never forgot it. But, yeah, they were kids.
Right. Well, luckily, your friends today were able to sit through the movie. So this new one is written and directed by James Gunn.
Yes.
So James Gunn has made a name for himself over the last 10, 15 years as, he's a very popular and well-known action comedy director. He's particularly associated with Marvel because he did the Guardians of the Galaxy films. And, he generated a lot of buzz because his films were funny and exciting and all the things that people wanted.
And successful.
And there was a point, I forget exactly what happened. I remember some sort of vague controversy about, I think like old tweet. There was an era where people were digging up old tweets of people and finding out that they'd made off-colour jokes back in the day. And I think he was subject to that at one point. And I think Marvel maybe took him off Guardians of the Galaxy or something, but like public outcry brought him back. So people, he's not just some director that they are. Like he got a name for himself. People know who he is.
He's got power, yeah.
He's now in charge of rebooting DC. So he's moved from Marvel to DC. He's, I think, co-head of the studio. In fact, let me just check. So it's the DC universe is the new thing. It was the DC extended universe. That's what we saw like the Zack Snyder films under, for instance. And it never really worked out what it wanted to be, whereas Marvel with the MCU was just going great guns and everything was successful, really. At least in that first 10 years when the main cast was there. DC never really figured it out, and so they're trying to figure it out yet again with a new kind of reboot. So now they're calling this the DC Universe, and it's created by James Gunn and Peter Safran. Peter Safran's a producer, I think. And they're co-chairman and co-CEOs of DC Studios. So that's quite a big deal for a director to be put in this head. Like, it's not like he's starting his own studio. He's being made head of this sub-studio of DC, I guess. And that's what's starting off it's a new reboot of Superman with a new actor in the main position. Let me find his name. David Corenswet.
Yes.
Who, the name I know, I've not seen him in anything.
Well, you might have, because, I was just looking him up, and he's in 2 Netflix series.
I've never seen House of Cards.
I have. It's wonderful. You'd love it.
Oh, sure
but it's not those I was thinking about. I was thinking about The Politician and Hollywood, which are both Ryan Murphy created shows that he's been in. Though I must say I don't remember him from those shows, right? Which is interesting. Anyway, I loved him in it, and I think it's very interesting because there's been so much criticism about how dull he is in this and so on. And I didn't find it so. Did you?
I liked him. I sort of can see why people would not 100% buy into him in a way. I did like him very much, and I liked his kind of boyishness, and I liked that they were playing him as, there was a difference between Clark Kent and Superman, which historically was the thing of, all he had to do was put on his glasses and no one knew. And in recent times, that's just gone completely by the wayside. Like, secret identities just don't seem to matter anymore in superhero stuff, and particularly secret identities where all you've got to do is put on a pair of glasses and people just buy it. Whereas they were doing that here, at least for a while, and then you found out that Lois does know who he is, and I'm like, I wish they'd gone with the whole...
Oh, no, I liked all of that.
But anyway, he works for that, and when he's playing Clark Kent, you see a lot of Christopher Reeve in him.
Sure.
A lot. You put that kind of, that nebbishy sort of aspect, and
sure.
the sort of, despite the fact he's big and strong and buff, you also buy him as someone who no one could see as a superhero.
Though he's buff in a different way. I loved him, and I think he's the best Superman, to my mind, since Christopher Reeve.
That's interesting, because people would absolutely put Cavill up there. Cavill,
I know. Well,
physically, visually fit the bill so deep. So
I know, and I love Cavill, but I think Cavill only fits the bill because he's so gorgeous, and he's built this monstrous body for himself in real life that corresponds to the Superman one. And actually, I kind of like this body, right? And I like this way of doing Superman. I don't know if you noticed, but the Superman costume looks like rough and homemade, right? His body isn't chiseled. Yeah, he's just fit. You never see him with his shirt off. Yeah, so he just looks like a fit, ordinary person.
He looks like what sexy men used to look like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Like when you remember when X-Men started, what Hugh Jackman looked like at the time.
Yeah.
Like you sort of couldn't imagine a buffer man, and then you look at what they've become these days and how you're supposed to be able to see people's insides from the outside. It's a completely different look.
Yeah.
But like he resembles more that early Wolverine type of physique.
Actually, I thought it was interesting because you know those scenes with Lois in the kitchen where he's just wearing his shirt and his trousers, right? And you could see what a great body he's got, right? But in a way that you can't when he's wearing a Superman costume, right? So I like that. I like the ordinariness of him, the kind of the sweetness. Like they tell us that he's the kind of person who sees the good in everybody, you know, which kind of means he's not quick or witty or even smart. And he evokes that quite well. I think it's kind of like a nice new take in Superman that he embodies very well, this actor.
Yeah, and the character is, you know, a very nice man, and he's constantly on the lookout for how to save lives, how to do the right thing. He has an interview with Lois early on in which, you know, she's talking about the ramifications of what he did and didn't he speak to anyone in power and all this kind of stuff, but he just acted on his own, and he's just going, he can't see past the fact that people were going to die, which is why he intervened. You know, and that's quite appealing. And you get it. And I mean, you're right, he doesn't come across as someone massively bright. It's like, that's not part of this. I mean, I'm not saying he's dumb, but like, it's like super braininess is not part of the equation here. He has just this very good moral centre.
Yes.
And you know, there's that one fight scene in which, so there's this other team, the Justice Gang, which includes Green Lantern and a couple of others. And they're willing to kill whatever enemy comes their way, but Superman's about, no, I want to save it. I want to try and study it. Can we get it somewhere else? You know, and then there's all this focus on the collateral damage.
Yeah.
You know, he'll save even a squirrel.
Yeah.
You know,
they
put so much emphasis on that. I mean, it's kind of. I think I had real trouble with it. I found it so hard to tolerate this film.
Oh, I liked it.
I found it audiovisually exhausting. And actually, it's funny because we were talking before about what other films James Gunn did. He also did The Suicide Squad, which was the reboot of Suicide Squad, because that also wasn't doing brilliant.
Yeah.
We podcasted on that, and one of the things I remember saying when we were podcasting on that is that was way too loud. And I think this was way too loud. I mean, this was an assault. I thought visually it was, in the action at least, a complete mess all over the place. It was, you know, not a complete mess exactly. Like, it's not like it's hard to follow. That's not what I'm saying. But extremely active visually. You're constantly on the move, and even when it wasn't in action scenes, still the camera's always moving. It's not necessarily just. There's just so much visual energy in this.
Yeah, I like that.
I had real trouble. I found it slightly overwhelming to cope with.
No, I like that.
And then he's not above using children, animals,
dogs,
put them in peril. You know,
I love that in this movie.
It's funny. There have been times when I would watch a film and I go on, you know, like kill the baby or whatever, like But here, I don't know whether it was just my mood or something. Whatever it was, I felt like actually this is getting a little bit tasteless. Like how much it's doing this.
I liked it, and I think it's important, right? And it connects to all those accusations that the film has been getting about being woke, right? And all that means is, you know, that it cares about justice, that it cares about life, to a degree about property. Though I think that's also, you know, one of the things that has just made American cinema so shitty over the last 30 years, right? Kind of this thing that you just go and shoot 20 people and run over 50 cars, right? Like, I mean, at a certain point, if it's cartoony, it feels all right. But then kind of you think about it, when all movies are like that, and you think there's a disconnection with people's everyday reality where, like, you know, buying your car is a major purchase in your life, and if somebody, like, you know, scratches it, you have a conniption and so on, right? Like, you know, so I thought this was a film that kind of, unlike a whole run of films, does care about kind of life, you know, and justice and things like that, right? And I like that about it. Yeah, and some of the imagery clearly connected. I mean, it is clearly a critique of Trump, right? And all those raids are like ICE raids those prisons, that you have are like the prisons, that people were sent
it's
to
not
El
only
Salvador.
not only outside. Yeah, exactly. It's not only not in El Salvador. This is in a pocket dimension.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
can't come back from that, basically.
So I loved all of that, and actually I think, it isn't a great masterpiece of the cinema, the film, but actually I'm surprised at how much kind of I liked it, and I liked this new iteration. And actually also, because, the Zack and Snyder ones are precisely what I'm telling you about, the destroy whole worlds and nobody cares, and everything was so dark and, kind of and cynical, and I hated all of that about those films.
You do have, like, all of, what's the city he lives in, Metropolis?
Yes.
You have all of Metropolis getting torn apart, and even though they do have, films have been doing this for a little while, in fact, basically since Zack Snyder was tearing cities apart in Man of Steel, that got a lot of criticism back in, 12 years ago or so, that you're destroying this city and there's no thought to the human cost here. So after that, they would destroy cities, but they'd say, we've made sure we've got everyone out first.
Yeah.
And no one really bought it, right? And here, I think we're back to the same thing. The city's getting torn apart. We're seeing this spectacular imagery of buildings tumbling into other buildings. Do we think no one's dying in this? Come on.
Yeah, well, but they don't show that.
No.
I know what you're saying, but I still think it's so much better than, what one is used to seeing in all the recent superhero films, where in fact, like in that Marvel one, you just kill a quarter of the people in the whole, world, right? You take it for granted that in films dealing with superheroes and planets and universes and going to outer space, the scale of some things are going to be different. But I thought there was kind of much more of a sensitivity towards those things in this film. And I liked it. I also liked all of the dystopian imagery with the monkeys. I like the way the implied critique, because here Lex Luthor, right, he's destroying things, but actually what the camera also lingers on are all the people working on their computers being gleeful about what's being done. This idea that kind of it's not just an individual, it's kind of, all the infrastructure and all the people who are supporting those decisions that are kind of, as gleeful and actually as kind of responsible, and as heartless. I thought the film kind of evoked that like really beautifully for me. So I liked all of that.
I really struggled with it. I hope one day to find a James Gunn film that I really like, but I don't think I appreciate. The thing is, he's clearly capable. He has a sense of humour. I appreciate a sense of humour, and there are jokes in this which I laughed at, and there are jokes which I appreciated worked, but I didn't laugh at because the mood didn't. The mood hadn't been like I wasn't in the mood basically. I think the tone didn't support all of it. But he's capable of making good jokes. He's capable of making interesting sort of character design. Like in fact, it was similar to the Suicide Squad. That whole thing about poking the alien in the eye. In the Suicide Squad, I don't know if you remember, it was all about the alien was just a big eye, and they kind of it was all about attacking the eye. And here they do another alien with an eye thing. Yeah, and it was funny, right? And I like the stuff that the Green Lantern makes is funny. It's like big baseball bats, and cause he generates shit out of thin air. When he's flipping all the tanks, and he literally flips them over with a middle finger, giant middle fingers. Quite funny. When Superman goes to see Lois, he's lost his dog, and he's very upset about having lost his dog, and there's an alien fight going on in the background out of focus because the Justice Gang, they can handle that. It's just an interdimensional anomaly or whatever. Very funny. It works, right? So there are things that really work, and I don't want to diminish all that, but there is something about the whole thing put together that I find very trying with James Gunn's work, because I would say the same thing about Guardians of the Galaxy, which basically I didn't like any of those films, but they had their bits.
First one.
They had their bits, but I find the whole thing so exhausting, and I really think it's a trial audiovisually to cope with this shit. It's just it's really hard to watch.
I didn't find it so.
I will say that I like how colourful it was. Compare that to the Zack Snyder films, for instance, which are basically black and white.
Yeah.
This is absolutely full of colour. So was the Suicide Squad. Loads of colour, pinks, greens, yellows, all over the place. Superman suit really pops.
I like the humour. I like the tone. I like the social critique. So for me, the things that I find didn't work was the whole Justice League subplot. I thought there was very odd casting. Such as Jimmy Olsen is supposed to be like a babe magnet, and there's nothing in the film that makes you think, why is he?
You can see Jen shaking her head because she would absolutely go for this iteration of Jimmy Olsen.
Well, let's say I don't get it.
I mean, there was the line when I think Lois says, "How do you do it?"
Yeah.
Like, but there are guys who you go, "How do you do it?"
Well, he's one of them.
He's a cutie.
Yeah, let's say the film doesn't make it clear how he does it, right? But he's not the only one, right? So I thought there was this odd thing because I thought Wendell Pierce was wonderful as the editor of the Daily Planet, right? But then the guy cast as a Green Lantern.
Nathan Fillion.
Yeah, why?
Well, Nathan Fillion is someone who is kind of popular. He's sort of more popular in like the online world than he ever has been mainstream, because he was in Firefly, was it the Joss Whedon space cowboy series, and there was a film with it called Serenity, and like that was cancelled, and that's one of the things people constantly talk about. I wish it had come back. It was wonderful. And then there was a long time where he was being talked about to play the main character in the Uncharted film. Remember we saw Uncharted with Tom Holland, and there was a whole thing about how he looked very much like the character design of the character in the game, and he would be a very good fit for it, but it never panned out. And he was in also Joss Whedon during the writers' strike in 2008-9 did a web musical called Dr. Horrible's Sing-Along Blog, and he played the kind of villain in it, who's actually a superhero because we see it from the villain's perspective. And he was quite funny in that, and it worked. And so there's just like, he is someone who has a profile, but it's never translated into mainstream success. He almost looks like someone. I mean, if you ignore the haircut here, for instance, which makes him look really bad, and it's a joke. He is someone who you could sort of see him pushing into a proper superhero role, but it's now too late to have that chance. He's too old.
Well, the thing is that I don't find him attractive. I don't understand his casting. Yeah, and I thought there were like bits like that, like the Jimmy Olsen, him, the girl who played Hot Girl, right? Like I thought, those are like major roles, really. You want somebody with a bit more pizzazz and charisma and presence, to kind of embody
Justice
those
Gang.
roles.
They were duds.
Sorry?
They were duds, Justice Gang.
They were, I think. So that to me was a problem, right? But otherwise, I liked it. I love the whole dog thing.
I found it quite tiring.
I love the dog.
He's got a dog, isn't it wonderful? Let's see the dog some more.
No, but there's more conflict than that. The dog also has superpowers and could be damaging to others. So there's always a sense of danger to others when the dog is around. And he says, I brought him here because I didn't want him to damage any of my father's cows, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, I don't take. I mean, if you're implying there's a real sense of threat to the dog, the dog is pure comic relief. No, and also a little bit of like sentimentality.
Well, there's that, but I also thought danger. Yes, I did.
I never got that.
I thought if the dog jumps on somebody else other than Superman, they're dead.
Yeah, I think the thing was. I mean, you're right. Like, realistically, that dog is powerful enough to kill someone. But the tone around the dog was constantly one of lightness. And, I never thought it was going to get to a point where, the dog's actually going to hurt someone.
Well, I did. And particularly in those moments where, Superman is under threat and he comes to the rescue or to help. Or, there's that sense. He brings kind of chaos and danger as well as fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to make great claims for this movie, but I liked it very much. I liked the lead actors very much. I hope there's a sequel. I would go to a sequel.
Well, there will be. I mean, from what I understand, they're doing a similar to the MCU had its like phases. From what I understand, the DCU is doing like chapters.
Right.
So I believe this chapter is called Gods and Monsters, and they'll like 5 films in it, and then they'll move on to another chapter.
Right.
So, and they're going to have, I think they've got like the main DC heroes. So I think there's going to be this Batman, Wonder Woman, and then they'll introduce smaller ones who.
Yes. And I hope they continue in this vein, because I thought the whole critique of Fox News, of social media, of the mendacity and rapacity of kind of middle management, how easily and willingly people sell out, all of that I found kind of really great to see.
I wish that that sort of heavily right-wing or heavily reactionary news channel had been handled a little bit better, because the idea is that they're constantly, they invite Lex Luthor on, they're constantly talking against Superman, they're saying Superman is here to kill us and everything. And then when it turns out that Lex Luthor, his corporation, has been engineering this war and blah blah, they're the real bad guys, all this news comes out, the Daily Planet reveals it, you see 3 or 4 news channels saying, reporting this news, and you see that channel in particular, which has been so supportive of Luthor, reneging on it, saying, go back on it, well, actually, it turns out he was the bad guy, we've had him on here, we apologise, whatever they said. And I kind of wanted them to go, no,
He's
they're
innocent.
wrong. Yeah, exactly. Superman's still the bad guy.
No, I agree.
You needed that in a way, because that is totally what those guys are like.
I know, I agree 100%. And actually, I thought that was going to be the punchline to that scene. He's innocent, we'll prove it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And instead, they just go with the rest of the gang, which didn't feel, it didn't feel realistic. But, it just didn't work. And they could have made a much better joke out of doing it. And being kind of more accurate and kind of, more critical had they turned that into a joke and did the opposite.
Yeah. Talking about Fox News, in real life, I've been seeing that Fox News has been really taking against this film because people have spoken about it as this immigrant story. I mean, Superman is literally an immigrant from another planet. And this is not an origin story, although we do get to hear about his origins. We visit his adopted parents and so on. There's this whole subplot about a message that his birth parents sent and so on. I think then James Gunn came out and said, this film is absolutely political. It's absolutely about immigrants. And Fox News have obviously picked up on that and gone with it. And they've gone, well, we hate this film then. And you're saying, all this stuff about the film being really woke. It's what the anti-woke crowd have been latching onto. But actually, you watch the film and you go, the messaging is there. And particularly with Superman's sort of speech to Luthor when he's got him, basically, it's all about, I'm just a human like you. I am human. That's what I make mistakes and I blah, blah, blah. And that's what makes me human.
Well, Fox gets by using buzzwords that don't mean anything. Because in this film, woke means that you're against the murder of children. Woke would just mean, something who was interested in basic justice. Yeah, truth, justice, and the American way is what Superman's supposed to be about. And there's very little truth and justice. Yeah. Yeah, so kind of this is a film that likes the idea of truth and justice, and that somehow is made to seem un-American at this moment.
Yeah, well, that's enough. But I suppose what I'm saying is just that the stuff is there at face value and on superficial level. It's there. It's telling you. It's pretty explicit, but it's not actually all that deep. And what really all I'm saying is that it's an excuse for a right wing media arm of a political party to just say some more shit. It doesn't actually matter. They probably haven't seen it. It doesn't matter.
What this film stands for is what the television series stood for. It's what the 70s version stood for, and it's more a commentary of how extreme right-wing politics have got in the United States that they have a problem with this than what the film itself does.
Yeah, or at least they're choosing to say they have a problem with it because just saying stuff is that's just perpetuating the culture war that they want to have.
Yeah.
What did you think of Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor?
I love Nicholas Hoult and everything, and I liked him in this.
What do you think of his characterization? I find it very simple.
I don't know. I love Gene Hackman in the original because he's really larger than life and cartoony, and the whole performance is a joke, right? This is less of a joke, and kind of they're meant to be twinned in some way, Lex and Superman, which is also, an idea behind the television series, right? The teen Superman one, whatever it was called.
To be fair, the twinning of the hero and the villain is a reasonably common idea throughout superhero narratives.
Sure, but I think particularly so with Lex Luthor, right?
Yeah.
And because that's another running theme in the film. Yeah, kind of brains over brawn. Well, kind of Lex has always been the brains and Superman has always been the brawn, right? So it's kind of, that sense of equal power, but for different reasons, and one cerebral, the other physical. So I do like Nick Hoult very much in this. I think maybe and I liked it. He often did facial gestures. He acted kind of for the camera. I think what I didn't like, and it's not a fault with with the actor, is the way that some of his scenes were written. When he cries towards the end, I didn't get that really. And I didn't see the necessity of it. I think it would have been better to turn the whole thing into a joke, or I'll be back, or I'll get you tomorrow, or something.
Yeah, like shaking his fist. I'll get you, Superman.
Something like that. But better than these kind of tears of whatever it was.
I
So,
found it a lot less interesting than the last Lex Luthor, which I believe was the Jesse Eisenberg one,
right.
which I think people probably had a bit of a problem with at the time, but has had, insofar as a film from only a few years ago can have a reevaluation, has had something of a reevaluation, because Jesse Eisenberg was like a tech bro kind of guy, like a young. I mean, actually, it was interesting that he played that Luthor when he played Mark Zuckerberg in The Social Network, because it had that similar vibe of a young person who's a tech billionaire, who has all this power but no experience and all these ideas about what they want and that kind of thing, and all this ambition. Because that's just like, it's a supervillain version of that kind of person who would later, after that film came out, sort of become much more prevalent in the world. Like, we're much more used now to the idea of the tech bro than we were when that film came out. It kind of anticipated it a little bit. And I think that's the reason that people have looked back at it and gone, actually, this is a really interesting version of this character.
Well, I think...
Whereas this one is, like, much more sort of... You could see this one in a 1930s Superman, like, it's...
Well...
I hate Superman and I want him gone. It is pretty much that simple.
I mean, I think there's that, for sure. But I think it would be interesting if the film had been made a year later or something, because the film has all the ingredients of a Trump parody in the Lex Luthor character, right? It's a man who wants to be king, right? And who does all of these kind of, terrible things in order to do so. And so many of his actions have a resonance or an echo with President Trump's actions, right? But obviously the film was made before these things happened, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
in some ways it's prescient.
I mean, it is funny, that line about him wanting to be a king, I think does strike you if you're aware of Trump's birthday recently, and how he had this military parade that wasn't very good through the streets of DC or wherever. And then at the same time, people were holding these protests, these no kings protests. There shouldn't be any kings, which was quite funny, because some people in other countries also held no kings protests, including countries where there are kings.
Yeah, I know.
And they're just fine with their own monarchies. But that line strikes you because of that, if you're aware of that.
Well, the line and the actions, really. I mean, it's just interesting, because obviously they couldn't have known that. I mean, I don't think those concentration camps in El Salvador, existed when they made this film. Yeah. Yet, it has such parallels. Yeah. So I think had they known it, then it would have given maybe Nicholas Hoult more freedom, to go a bit over the top and make it funnier, make it like a Trump parody without naming it. Whereas in this, I think he's trying to play a more realistic character, really. But I think maybe that's the problem in the way that the character is written. Yeah, that kind of, the film might have worked better, but I think it works very well, had the Lex Luthor character been played more for laughs.
Yeah, or more dramatically maybe, but there was something that just felt quite plain about it to me, like not enough individual sort of personality had been given to this version of the character. It felt a little bit sort of off the page, and I like Nicholas Hoult very much. I mean, I've really come round on him, as you know. Like, I used to really not like the guy, and then basically in the last year, particularly when we saw Juror number 2.
Oh, he was so wonderful.
This guy actually, okay, right, I've got to get over this Nicholas Hoult thing, because the guy's really fucking good. And he is good here, and I hope he gets more interesting things to do when we presumably will continue to see him.
He's so charismatic. I mean, I do think that kind of... I like him very much. I think the role is maybe misconceived in relation to the film. But it didn't bother me very much. I really, I enjoyed watching the film.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I'm glad someone did. I found it real slow. You go to these films thinking, why are you going to this? Like, someone else would say, why go to this? You don't like James Gunn. You don't like this. You know it's going to be... And it's like, well, maybe it'll be good.
Yes.
But my opinion on James Gunn and the films he makes continues to be preserved as it is. It's not my cup of tea. Put it that way.
Okay, well, fair enough. But, I suppose I feel different. I had a really good time. I think, actually, that, what's his name? The actor who plays Superman is going to be a big new star. I think he's very
If we can remember his name.
Well,
his name is David Corenswet.
Yeah, David Corenswet. I think he's going to be a big star.
Spell the name.
I think he's very good. I think he's got this real physical presence. I think he's good with the jokes, and he's got one of those faces that movie stars have, actually, where, they're ordinary but extraordinary. Yeah, that kind of... if you're too beautiful, you're just like a pretty boy, and actually a dime a dozen in a way. There's something kind of interesting about, attractive people who also look plain. Yeah, and I think he's one of those. Yeah, he's very attractive. Yeah, but he's got kind of, an amorphous face, really, like an everyman face.
Yeah, but bring back the stuff about people not knowing his secret identity. I mean, in fairness, they do not. The only one who does know secret identity is Lois, isn't it? Because at the end, what they know is that she's been seeing Superman, but they don't know that Superman is Clark Kent.
Yeah, I loved all of that. I mean, I loved the last moment where they kiss in secret and they fly. Yeah, kind of.
But you notice how they had to explain the thing about his glasses. When he puts his glasses on, it changes people's brains so they don't recognise him. Like, that's the kind of shit that needs an explanation to audiences these days. This is the kind of thing actually I was objecting to when we saw Sinners, that everything needs a fucking explanation. You can't just leave some stuff.
It's so funny because I don't know about you, but I've had a million incidents where, I'll go...
I know what you're going to say.
I'll go through a phase where I put on my contact lenses and you walk by people you've walked all your life and they don't recognize you. And they don't say hello. And I have a very distinctive body and presence, right? Like, and they still walk right past you. So,
if you were laughing, they'd notice you. They go, there's that laugh.
Well, yes, maybe they would. But actually, kind of, the glasses do something,
Yeah. But the explanation given here is that they're special glasses that change people's brains so they don't recognise them. Whereas the interpretation that was always much more interesting was that when he's playing Clark Kent, it's not the glasses, it's that his whole demeanour, his whole being, people just can't buy that he would be Superman. It wouldn't even occur to them that he would be this person. Despite the fact that he's identical. That was always kind of interesting.
But also, there is a thing... Cultures have changed, right? Like, I mean, so wearing glasses in 1930 or 1940 and wearing glasses in 2025 are different, right? At a certain point, wearing glasses was like a physical defect. Yeah, kind of, you were blind, right? You couldn't do certain things, it was an added expense. It was seen as something that made you ugly. Men never make passes at girls that wear glasses, right? Like,
Yeah.
So I kind of all of
That's
those associations were different, really.
I never thought about that.
I mean, now glasses are an accessory. You can choose to put them on, choose to put them off, wear contacts, wear different colored eyes or whatever.
So these days it should be that when he's Clark Kent, he walks with a cane. He could possibly be Superman. He's got a limp. That's kind of what you're saying, though, right? I never thought about it that way.
Well, I think I'm not sure if that's what I'm saying, but I think it does mean different things. And I also think that the thing about, because we all have social visual shortcuts, right? I think glasses are some of them. You recognize somebody, they will buy, do they wear glasses? Yeah, you know who they are. They don't wear glasses, it's almost like you just look past them or, because, I mean, it really happens to me all the time. It does. And I notice it very much because I don't wear contacts often anymore. And when I do, it's almost like you have to present yourself to people because otherwise they'll walk right past you.
You need better mates.
That could be something as well. Any excuse not to talk to Jose.
All right, jolly good.
All right. Well, I recommend it. I had a really great time, and I love the look, the humor, and the stars.
Yeah, I don't waste your time. Or at least watch it with a cinema with the sound down a little bit because it's far too loud. Come on, this is not necessary.
So this one kind of a mixed notice, but I hope you enjoyed the podcast. We're eavesdropping at the movies, and we are on
Apple Podcasts, Audible, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, and YouTube Music. On social media, we're on Facebook and Twitter at Eavesdrop Movies, and Blue Sky, eavesdropping.bsky.social, and the website is eavesdroppingatthemovies.com.
Thank you very much for listening.
Bye-bye.